All right, we're starting with Kaitlyn with Armed
Yep.
Robots, which is an awesome title.
Yes, it is. So, cue the Terminator theme. Dump, 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 da, dump,
Yeah,
dump, 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 da, dump. Uh, so there's, so some lawmakers saw a video of the police using one of those dogs from Boston Dynamics
yeah.
to defuse a bomb, and it went viral. And now they're having a bit of a moral panic because you really don't want the police having robots with weapons. In this case, the video that went viral didn't even have weapons or anything. It was just a robot to defuse bombs. But of course, people are seeing this and freaking out and being like, "Oh my gosh, we can't have police with weaponized robots." And there actually was a case where a robot was used to kill one person one time. I read the article where apparently there was a mass shooter, and the police sent up a robot to essentially plant a bomb and blow itself up and kill the mass shooter. And in that case, the mass shooter actually ended up killing like 5 cops
Yeah.
before that happened. So it was a pretty extreme case. But yeah, they're very worried about about killer robots. And truth be told, of course, the police do need to back off some of their militarization. But yeah, I just thought this was a really fun article.
I'm surprised we don't have armed drones in America yet. I mean, they love them overseas, and I bet the cops would love to have them here too.
Oh, I'm sure they would. They shouldn't have them, but I'm sure they would love them.
You could
Yeah,
just blow people away at any time from anywhere.
yeah. I mean,
It'd be a huge boon to law enforcement.
yeah, one of the big problems we have in American policing is that we have this surplus pipeline where surplus military goods go straight to the police. It's like we now have a militarized police, and we need to curb that. But I'm not too worried about killer robots just yet.
You could send a drone over a protest and just like drop. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think it's very logical. Anyway. Um, all right, and Alan's got the U.S. intelligence report about Russia. Yeah, I've been hearing about this one.
Yes, and a story that really hasn't gotten much attention at all. Vox has this article on a report from the U.S. Intelligence agencies looking at what countries tried to interfere in the 2020 presidential elections. And according to this report, Russia was very actively involved in trying to help Trump. And Russia engaged in a different set of influence operations than the 2016 election. There was less of the online troll effort and more efforts put into the influence operations by doing things like using proxies and manipulating people in the Trump orbit, including Rudy Giuliani, perhaps.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. intelligence agencies came up with this analysis with a high degree of confidence that Russia it did very actively try to do these things. Also, in the assessment of this report, Iran was involved in trying to hurt Trump, but not support Biden specifically. Also with a high degree of certainty. Though in the case of Iran, it seems like the Iranian government was just trying to damage Trump's chances and not do much more than that, because apparently they're not big fans of Trump in the Iranian government.
Yep.
And
And China did not do it at all.
And China did not do anything. Yeah.
Well,
And so,
China,
contrary to all of Trump's statements leading up to the 2020 election, China was really not involved, according to the U.S. intelligence agencies.
and not just Trump, also William Barr and all the Republican officials.
Yeah. So it's very clear that the intelligence agencies were probably of this opinion earlier in 2020, but that the Trump administration subverted the U.S. intelligence agencies and forced them to come out with these ridiculous statements that were clearly untrue.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
in some ways, it's not surprising that Russia and other countries were involved in trying to manipulate the American election. But the most alarming thing about this report is how much the Trump administration lied about U.S. intelligence findings leading up to the 2020 election.
Yeah. Although this has been received plenty of attention on Rachel Maddow.
Oh, well, I don't count that.
If you listen to radical left-wing propaganda like that, it was actually the most popular news show on TV a couple of weeks ago. But anyway,
Was it really?
so it's getting some attention. But anyway, they totally lied, and they blamed it on China when they knew that was false. This report was already out then. Biden's just declassified it because he's going to punish Russia, and he's putting out his justification before he punishes Russia. So anyway, then we're down to mine. Oh, the NFTs. NFTs are the new hot rage. And so an NFT is a token that shows that you own something. It's like a certificate of authenticity, but then you don't actually own the object. So, and the idea originally, I think, is that artists could sell an original piece of digital art, and you would have someone assigned to be the owner, even though other people could copy it, they wouldn't technically be the owner. And somebody paid $69 million for an NFT. And I thought it actually made a little bit of sense, like CryptoKitties at first, but then this guy, Jonty Waring, is a technical on Twitter. He had a thread explaining what's actually going on with NFTs. And they don't even store a unique identifier of the art object on the blockchain, which is what I thought they did. They store a JSON token on the blockchain that just has a URL to a company that sold you the NFT where they put the actual data about the artwork. So it's not even proof that you own it. When that company goes broke, or if somebody hacks that website, the actual data stored on the blockchain will no longer point to the artwork, and you've got nothing. So it is a total scam. You're not even getting the bragging rights of saying you technically own something that other people can copy. You're just getting like a postcard pointing to a sign that might go down saying that this points to that artwork. And so there are various other links I put in the list here of other people warning about this, that it's a total scam. You're not really getting anything, and you're not even getting the little bit that they pretend you get. And apparently when you buy them, the people that create these and sell them have hidden fees and rip you off. But you can exploit it. And here's a guy that recorded his farts and sold them for $85 as NFTs. So anyway, whoever paid $69 million for one of these, I think, is getting even less than they expected to get. And just like everything else on the blockchain, it's just a scam. And I think I have not seen this global inflation that people said would come from all this government just shooting off the money cannon and giving everybody money. But there clearly are a lot of people with money they have nothing better to do with that they're just throwing into bogus investments like this. That's one aspect of inflation I am seeing, is a large investment in Dogecoin and NFTs and other completely worthless things, and the price going up for no good reason. Anyway, Liz has got somebody hacking to become homecoming queen.
Yeah, I thought this story was pretty entertaining, though I'd be really interested to hear a little more about the technical aspect of this. Essentially, this mother, who happened to be an assistant principal, helped her daughter lodge fraudulent votes for homecoming so that she could get elected to be homecoming queen.
In Florida, of course.
In Florida, of course. Florida woman strikes again. And she was actually like arrested and booked into jail and everything, which I thought was pretty interesting. And her daughter got sent to juvie over this. And apparently the mom, because she was a principal, she had like admin access to the school board's program that had a bunch of student PII. And she accessed a ton of different, it says hundreds of student accounts. So that's pretty interesting, I thought. It's pretty high stakes to commit felonies over, multiple felonies over homecoming queen election, because apparently they were both charged with 1 count each of offenses against users of computers, computer systems, computer networks, and electronic devices, which is a 3rd-degree felony. Unlawful use of two-way communications device, also a 3rd-degree felony. Criminal use of PII, also a 3rd-degree felony, so we're up to 3 so far. And conspiracy to commit these offenses, which is just a misdemeanor.
Yep. There's a lot of psychos out there. Remember that woman who like broke her daughter's opponent's legs so she could win the ice skating contest years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there are some things that are just really high stakes to people that I just can't comprehend.
People made a big deal about homecoming king and queen in undergrad school and high school, and I had the similar reaction. I don't know what the deal is, but it really is a big deal. That and the prom. These are life-changing events for a lot of people, apparently.
I guess yeah, they are, and it's one of those things that I guess I've just never been able to understand the importance that folks attach to these things.
I think it has a lot to do with getting with the competition to obtain a mate, although the prizes are highly questionable. Anyway,
I mean, there's so much pressure if you are wealthy to play the social game. So you gotta be the debutante. You got to be the prom king and queen, and you be a little social butterfly, and that's how you maintain your status. And there's a lot of pressure to do that.
I guess this is what happened to Meghan Markle. She had too much of that pressure. Anyway, Irvin has got AT&T and net neutrality again.
Yeah, so AT&T tried to block net neutrality from happening, and the judge said no on their injunction to stop it from rolling through. The judge pretty much said all the claims that the ISPs made were moot and just didn't fit what they wanted. So I've also been seeing some other articles of like AT&T saying that they're going to start charging for stuff now. So the prices for internet services is going to start to go up, because of course they're not going to lose. They're going to get money no matter what.
But they wanted, I guess, to selectively throttle stuff, and now they won't be allowed to do that in California.
They wanted to continue having control over everything and being able to do what they want. And now that they can't do what they want, they're going to rebel in the only way that they know how.
Well, yeah, this argument has been going on for a long time of whether anybody really has the right to impose net neutrality. And it sounds like perhaps the state of California has that ability, even if the FCC does not. Yeah.
So the ISPs did argue that there should be a national rule, not just by state. And at the bottom, the judge did say, this should be dealt by Congress. But for now, at least in California, the ISPs cannot stop net neutrality from going forward.
Well, Congress haven't been able to do anything for 10 years. But from what I'm hearing now, the pressure to end the filibuster is really getting large. So maybe they will do that, and then they can actually push forward some of these priorities that have been waiting for more than a decade. And some laws about internet security and privacy and such would be somewhere on that list, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that was interesting to me about your article here is that there was one section of it where the New York Attorney General had found that these ISPs had deliberately made the decision to let these network connections become overly congested and then use that congestion as leverage to extract payments.
Yep.
I think that's what's happening to me at home. I had to cancel a class and I had to adjust things because my Comcast suddenly became unable to carry any significant amount of traffic, and it would come and go. And I was actually thinking I would have to get the next level up, but then I found I can just sneak up and connect to my landlord's connection upstairs. That's faster.
Comcast is weird because I remember at some point after the beginning of the pandemic, they removed their BS data caps and found that it didn't impact service in any way.
Of course it didn't.
Maybe, make you wonder how many of these things are artificial in order to pressure you into doing just what you were saying. Like, oh, this guy's a power internet user. Let's get him.
Yeah, and the same thing happened to Uber. Uber made a big deal about that bill that tried to pass in California. It would make Uber drivers have the same rights as other workers. And in the UK, they passed that bill, and Uber said, okay, we'll pay them like a guaranteed minimum wage and like benefits and vacation. And they say, well, the price of the rides you go up. They say, oh, no, we won't have to raise the price of the rides. They're like, wait a minute. In California, you said it would end the world. Then in the UK, you just roll over and say, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Then again, they do have socialized medicine in the UK, and
Save
I
a
can
ton
imagine.
of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the thing that I noticed when Uber did that, when California went after Uber, they then raised it specifically. They raised the prices specifically in California, like way more than they should have, and then specifically said, "This is the California taxes. You guys are, like making us pay so much money," and the math doesn't work out. They're just, it's all BS.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
But I thought that they won though.
They did.
So that makes it even worse that they raised prices when they didn't even.
Well, I mean, it was in San Francisco. Sorry, I believe that the San Francisco said you had to pay a certain amount, and they raised it. Yeah, I just remember the prices were just ridiculously high, and I mean, it was obvious that they were just retaliating against the.
They still do have some kind of California driver something surcharge when you use their service.
What was great, if you read the book in the early days under Travis Kalaniak or whatever his name is, when Uber started having drivers like kill their riders and kidnap them and stuff, and then it turned out that they hadn't really vetted them, there wasn't really any insurance or anything, then they decided to respond by adding a $1 safe driver charge to every ride, which they did not do anything to improve the safety. They just kept the money, and now you felt like safer. So that's a real Uber way to solve the problem. Anyway, and Kaitlyn has this awesome article about SMS. Boy, this hit me like a bomb this week, this scandal about SMS.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked to find out what was going on with SMS. So for a while now, there's been a few tricks that you can do to SMS, but they're kind of hard to pull off. You can do like a SIM swap, which sounds exactly what it is. You find another SIM card and you with that connects to the same number, and you swap out the SIM cards, or you can do something called an SS7 attack, which is a back-end attack. Once again, kind of hard. You kind of have to have access to the back end. But there's this service, what's it called? Net number. And it's when you get those weird texts from like 0611721 or something, like, just a weird like 4-digit thing. 4-digit or 3 or 4-digit text number, it's going through net number. And what net number does is it reroutes like SMSs to like different numbers and stuff like that, and like shows up as like these, and it's basically used for marketers and stuff. And you can pay them like, I don't know, $5-6, and then take over everyone's SMSs. And it's like, you can wait, what?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. You can subscribe, and then you can say, okay, send all the text from this number to me. They say, oh, you have to prove you own that number by signing this document promising you own that number. We don't actually send a text to that number. Like every email service would send you an email and say, did you really subscribe to this?
Yeah, no, they just do it. And of course, I mean, if they can do it, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's SS7 again or what's going on, but somehow if they can do it, I'm sure there's another way that some more unscrupulous people can do it regardless. SMS is fundamentally broken. We should not be relying on it for two-factor authentication.
Well, of course, to be fair, having an SMS second factor is better than having no second factor at all, but it's vastly inferior to something like an app on your phone.
Right. There's a lot of authenticator apps that are pretty good.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just amazing how bad SMS is, though. And I know people send like sexting all the time, and they plot criminal plots and invading the Capitol over SMS and everything. And I think if they realized how much everybody can just totally steal your SMS, they might not be so willing to do that.
Yeah, that's good point.
Yeah.
Remember, criminals, encrypt your text messages.
That's right. Get Signal or something.
Yeah.
Well, even just people that are sending private messages, like all the celebrities sending nude pictures and stuff.
That's true.
Anyway, and so, yeah, I saw this Sky providing encrypted phones.
Yes, Sky Global, a company that specialized in providing encrypted apps for encrypted communication and phones to criminal gangs, has been broken up by Belgian police, and the CEO, who is a Canadian by the name of Jean-Francois App, has been indicted by the U.S. Justice Department. And this is still an evolving story. It seems that the company has just closed down as of yesterday, and all of their devices no longer work or something along those lines. But apparently this company and its products have been very popular in the international drug running scene. They have sold over 70,000 telephones, mostly with the microphones and cameras and GPS disabled. And they also have these apps, the Sky ECC app that was widely used in those drug running circles. And that's why it attracted the attention of Belgian police and Europol and the US Justice Department. But at any rate, it seems like this company is now done for. But it really underscores the lengths to which these international criminal syndicates are going to improve their OPSEC. This company previously had a very good reputation in those circles. And so it seems that those international crime rings have learned a thing or two about their electronic OPSEC. And they had purchased these devices en masse, and that they were also using this app en masse. Unfortunately, it wasn't good enough. And the Belgian police claimed that they were able to crack the apps. So I guess that's the end of that. Now the criminals will need to find something else to use.
Well, I have a question. What crime did they commit? I mean, you sell a high security encrypted phone. How is that a crime?
Well, the indictment from the U.S. Justice Department's a little vague on the specifics. They, of course, talk about how these devices have been used for selling heroin, fentanyl, and meth, and all that. But
well, sure, but
yeah,
I could sell you a gun. It's very likely that you're going to do something awful with that gun too, but I'm not the one committing a crime.
Right. But the claim is that the CEO of this company also somehow directly profited from these transactions, and that he was aware that his devices and app would be used for nefarious
So
purposes.
he needed to have a little more plausible deniability.
Something like that, yes. But we'll see. As far as I know, he's still in Canada. The CEO is a Canadian citizen, lives in Vancouver, and has not yet been extradited to the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, this reminds me of, there was some similar situation. I slipped out of my mind. Anyway, there's quite a few of these where you sell something, which is, the company that does taxes, the number one, TurboTax.
Mm-hmm.
Their database engineer went whistleblower and said, hey, I can totally look at the database and I can see who is sending other people's income tax in as income tax fraud, and you should punish them. And when I told the boss, he said, shut up. They're customers. They're paying the fee. They're filing their taxes. We are under no obligation to stop that crime. We're not the police. And that, last I heard, that was still in court knocking around. It is very unclear that you are responsible for the crimes your customers commit using your product.
Well, it's interesting that the IRS hasn't taken more of an interest in controlling that. You know, if they had the visibility into people's financial dealings like TurboTax, then think of all the fines they would be able to collect.
And so what I would think would be the logical thing is the IRS would subpoena TurboTax and say, you have to give us your records so we can prosecute these people. But if they hand over the records, TurboTax has not committed a crime. That would be my interpretation.
Right.
But they said maybe TurboTax does have some obligation when it is pretty obvious that people are using your service for illegal activity. It's tough.
Right.
Anyway. All right. And then I've got, this one I thought is yet another variation. We've known for a while that they can take a photograph of somebody holding a key and deduce how to carve the key. But now you can take a smartphone and record the sound of the key going into the lock. And the sound as it hits the pins is enough to figure out what the key is and make the key from that. So I thought that was pretty awesome. That would be fun to see that go. There's so many of these cute side channel attacks, and that's a side channel physical security attack. And then Liz has got dark patterns that trick users. So what's the deal here?
So we're all familiar with dark patterns okay, well, it's just it's a way of describing a very user unfriendly design that's meant to guide you into doing something that's not in your best interest that you might not otherwise do. So
well, like everything you use that has to do with the college.
Yes, there are all these little tricks that they use that they're really devious and underhanded, and the whole intent of them is to screw people over and scam them in certain ways. So, like for example, you could sign up for a subscription. It's really easy to sign up. Just click here and click this box and you're signed up. But then if you want to cancel that subscription, you've got to make 3 phone calls to phone numbers where you got to sit on hold for 2 hours and send a certified letter by mail and show up in person,
That was the whole business model of AOL. They did that for years.
Yes, exactly. And there are other ones too, where especially with the California data and consumer privacy protection that passed a year or 2 ago, and I see this every day, all day, every day, where they say, oh well, you can opt out of selling your you can opt out of having your data sold, and they make it impossible to do that. And you've got to go through this insanely onerous process, and then they make it so the site's unusable, and most people just say screw it and just allow their, so it's pointless. They found ways to work around those consumer protections just by making things completely unusable. And they call that, by the way, I love the term that's often used for that subscription model. They call that the roach motel, because it's easy for you to get roped in, but it's real hard to get out.
Yeah. So this is California, CCPA.
Yes.
People complained about CCPA when it came out, but this sounds like it actually benefiting us.
It does sound like that. I would like to know more about it, but on the surface, it sure sounds like a good thing to me.
Yeah, but it hasn't actually. Nobody's actually yet been punished for this, right?
No, and that's the other thing. We can say we can make these policies, but if there's no enforcement, then they don't have any teeth.
Well, and now supposedly there'll be enforcement, but I mean, until we see the first few cases, we don't know how it really works out in practice.
Right, and as far as I know, there's no enforcement on the data protections laws that we passed.
No, probably not. That's right. Yeah.
Occasionally, I would think a very small amount of companies will comply out of desire to comply, to be in compliance, but I think they're going to be in the minority. Now we are starting to see in the EU that there are penalties for disobeying GDPR, and they're starting to hand out some pretty serious sanctions to companies who are disobeying it. And that's really what you got to do. Especially, I think especially in cases where it's patently clear that it was willful non-compliance. Now on the other hand, I do think that there should be some kind of provision for the occasional screw up, because sometimes compliance is hard, sometimes, especially with smaller companies and smaller businesses. I think that it might not be appropriate to hit a 3-person operation with multi-million euro fines, but it's all there's got to be some kind of incentive for compliance, or disincentive. Well, I should say disincentive for non-compliance.
Yep. Okay. Good. And Irvin's got to try hack me about OpenVAS.
I found this the other day and decided, hey, share it with the world. For those who are unfamiliar with OpenVAS, there is a room in TryHackMe for you.
It looks like a free room too.
Yes, it is a free room.
I totally have to send my students here. You can practice using your phone scanner and
Yep.
very nice.
Yep.
Right. So for people at home that don't know what OpenVAS is, Irvin, do you want to tell them what it is?
It's a vulnerability scanner. It's the open source one compared to Nessus, who's closed source. But you can use it to find any vulnerabilities on a system and just start the process of figuring out what is vulnerable on your network and what next steps you can do.
And tests have shown that these vuln scanners are so effective they find half of the vulns they're designed to find. So you be aware of that. They're sort of like a vacuum cleaner with a very weak motor, but they will find some of the problems.
Yeah, they can be fine-tuned as well. But just for those who have no knowledge of that,
Oh yeah,
want to get their feet wet into using a tool like this, there's a room for you now.
yeah, it's very nice. A whole lab all set up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. And then we got Kaitlyn with the critical hot fire test.
Right. As you pointed out, NASA did a critical hot fire test as opposed to a cold fire test. But anyway, so as people are probably aware, NASA retired the space shuttle a while ago. They retired a while ago. And the replacement is this SLS. So the idea is that the space shuttle would kind of go into low Earth orbit, and we kind of want to go out of low Earth orbit in future missions and go to the moon and go to Mars and a few other places. And the replacement to the space shuttle is this thing called the Space Launch System, or SLS. And it's been a long time in the making. Initially, it was supposed to be kind of like, oh, the space shuttle is retiring. We'll have the SLS up in no time. Don't worry about it. But of course, things happen. It just takes a lot longer than it initially plans to take. But they tested the main rocket body earlier. I think actually it was yesterday, and it was a great success. The rocket engines ran for about 9 minutes, and they gimbaled everything and they checked everything out, and everything looks absolutely fine. And it looks so it looks like the next mission after this test will be a run to the moon. They're going to send an unmanned capsule to the moon and back, and just make sure everything works before we start sending people. So we're back on track, people. And if anyone looks at the video of the test and they see the engines and the engines look sort of familiar, that's because, like I said, we're replacing the space shuttle with the SLS system, and those engines are the same engines that we had on the space shuttle. So
well, it sounds good, and I'm glad to see they're being careful. Like Elon Musk sent his thing up twice and it exploded. So you want to be a little more careful than that.
Well, I mean, they they explode during tests, which is the whole point of tests. And the first test, this is actually the second test. The first test they had to stop early. Something I still don't know what happened, but they got something that was worrying, and so they stopped the test. But this was a rousing success. So now it's on a barge, or at least headed to a barge, and gonna get set up to start going to the moon.
So everybody we send up to the ISS, they're flying on other nations' rockets. We don't currently have anything that can go there. Is that the case?
That is not the case anymore. For a while it was. For a few years, we have to go to Russia and be like, hey, can we please go to our space station?
That's kind of messed up.
But of course, it's an international effort, and everything was fine. But recently, SpaceX stepped up, and we started using their commercial stuff. So we're now just taking commercial flights.
This is like commercial stuff does not blow up. So.
Yeah, the commercial stuff doesn't blow up. It hasn't blown up yet.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of neat what they do with the landing rockets and stuff. But yeah, so now we're kind of just using, we're booking tickets on flights to get to the ISS. But I mean, that's the way things should be progressing. Private industry comes in, and then NASA expands further out, and
Yeah. It's just like your grittier science fiction, where you just buy a ticket to the moon like you would in any place else.
Yeah, eventually, yeah, sure enough. When things progress enough, when it becomes cheap and viable economically, NASA will just stop producing rockets to the moon, and you will buy a ticket to the moon, for $2 million, send your astronauts that way, and then NASA will focus on rockets to Jupiter.
Hmm. All right, and Alan's got a humble bundle.
Yes, not to be a shill for commercial products on this podcast, but there's a really good deal on ebooks published by No Starch Press, which happens to be my favorite technical publisher, also
yeah.
a local San Francisco publisher. And you can get 15 books for $18 through Humble Bundle, which is a platform that sells mostly games, but also sells a number of ebooks too. A really, really good deal. I mean, I guess you could probably find DRM PDFs for these books online too. I'm not advocating for that. But you don't know if those are Trojaned, and it's maybe not the most ethical to just be.
Yeah, I like the Rust book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to read that.
Yeah.
But just about everything in here is interesting, aside from the Java book. So it seems like this is good for months, if not years, of learning about computer programming languages. And
Yeah, No Starch is great.
Yeah.
Good. They have a fun CEO too. I sat next to him on an airplane. He's a fun guy. He wanted me to write a book. He said, "You write a book, I'll publish it, and you'll get a better deal." And I said, "Yeah, I probably would. If they ever actually finally fire me, maybe I'll write a book. But in the meantime, I got some teaching to do."
You should, Sam. I'll buy it.
Yeah, well, but I don't really need to. Other people are writing good enough books for everything I'm teaching now. But anyway, the college is always teetering on the edge of disaster, though. So anyway, but now I'm getting consulting clients, so I got other things to do. Other people are writing enough good books. I'm especially happy with the new hacking book from Georgia Weidman. Her update is going to come with matching labs on Pentester Academy. So you just have updated online labs ready to go, which is a great thing. I'm glad to see that.
Awesome.
And that
Is that being
stuff
published by No Starch?
I don't think so. But anyway, I like the fact that it comes with updated online labs.
Yeah.
That's really good. Like the Try Hack Me stuff Irvin's been finding. I think that's the wave of the future.
That is definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, I had a little one here that I thought was a lot of fun about bladeless windbells. It's just like a giant pole sticking up in the air, and the wind makes it vibrate back and forth. And that's all it does. And that's all it has to do to generate power. So there's no blades, there's no risk. It doesn't take any complicated mount. It's a whole lot cheaper and simpler than an ordinary windmill. So he said you could put this on a lamp post and it would generate enough power to run the lamp out in the desert. It would just be a closed system. You could stick it on your house if you're off the grid. And so that seems like a really great idea. So we'll see how popular those things become. But it also isn't going to kill birds the way other windmills do. It seems to have removed all the defects of windmills. So that would be nice.
I was reading up on this a little bit. It seems there are a few companies that are in this space, this non-moving parts or minimally moving parts windmill space.
Yeah, my first thought is you couldn't generate enough power to matter, but apparently you can.
But these are also highly experimental and they've received very little funding. So it seems as if their claims might be a little exaggerated.
Well, yeah, that could be. Anyway, Liz has got, this one where the cars are sending your location back and selling it to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like the SMS story.
It is not a real surprise that this is happening. It is what is a sort of a spooky thing about this is that this surveillance contractor is pushing to aggregate this data and sell that technology to the military, and then of course the cops too, because that's how that goes, even though it's not mentioned in this article, but that's usually how these things shake out after a minute. And this company is saying that we can already do real-time tracking of any vehicle in every country except for North Korea and Cuba. on a real-time basis or close to it. And don't you want this here?
Yeah, so if you want privacy, you just move to North Korea.
Yeah, or I was thinking, it's like your car, which not only has advanced endpoint protection, it's also got enhanced privacy protections as well.
Yeah, these will be the selling points to raise the sale price of my car, which is probably going to start at about $5.
Yes, you might even get 6 for it if you can't be tracked by the military surveillance state that we live in. And I think that I think there's another issue here with these data brokers in that we've already seen, like for example with the California DMV, we've already seen that once these data brokers get the green light to aggregate and sell this data, it doesn't just get sold to the military or the cops. It also often gets sold to any kind of private entity, which could be anybody, and they don't care who they sell this stuff to, because they're in the business to make money and get as many get as many customers as possible. So I mean, this and of course they always sell. The selling point for all of this overzealous surveillance is always one of two things. It's always counterterrorism or protecting children.
Right.
Because it's hard to argue against. They've discovered that it's a very successful way to quell any kind of arguments for privacy, for consumer privacy, because, oh, well, what is your privacy when it's compared to the safety of your children or the safety of our country? These evil terrorists are doing horrible things. So give up all that privacy so that we can make you safe again.
Yeah, well, I think we have reasonable hopes of some internet privacy laws in California anyway, although probably not at a national level.
And, I think the other thing is too, is that, we don't, once we have these things in place, we don't really consider the fact that anytime you offer a sort of a gateway to people's data like this, it's going to get misused. There's no assurance that if you provide it to the military, provide it to the cops, it's only going to be used for ethical, legal purposes, because we know that just doesn't happen.
How can you have such a cynical attitude? I don't understand how anybody can think that way.
Mostly just because of pattern recognition.
Yeah. And then Irvin has NVIDIA with a surprise.
Yes, they mistakenly put out a developer driver that undid the damage that they put out on everybody. The original thing was the 3060 cards could no longer do mining because the performance was cut in half, and then a developer driver went out into the world and undid that. So of course NVIDIA did their best to remove the driver, but people saw it, people copied it, it's out in the world now. So there are drivers that you can use to use your 3060 to mine all you want at full power.
Well, there you go. This idea of selling your product and crippling it kind of troubled me anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Well, all right, that's it for this one, and we'll be back on Monday.